Should read topic number 4. Says, is propaganda being used to divide black people, or is it being used to unite us? This also came with a link that I think takes us to YouTube. We're going to watch it, then comment.
Your next step, and it's a big one, is to get the facts.
Well, is he a real American?
Howard Butler was born in this country. He obeys its laws. He's a good citizen. Yes, he is a real American. The same can be said for Richard Cooper. So ask yourself whether the facts support the purpose. Do they support the transfer of feeling from real American to Mr. Butler over Mr. Cooper?
No, I guess not.
Well, that's your 4th step. Weigh the facts against the purpose and the technique.
I think I understand. To know whether propaganda is good or not, whether it's true or not, I should know the purpose, recognize the technique, get the facts, and judge the purpose and technique by the facts.
But when you want the facts about live political battle, don't come to a campaign manager.
I might do it at that. But I will also go and see your opposition.
Well, that's all right. Whenever you're tracking down propaganda, get as many different points of view as you can.
You know something?
What?
I think that it might be interesting to make a really serious study of propaganda.
I find it interesting, and there's plenty to study. Here I have just a few of the many books on the subject. You can read them. You can keep your eyes and ears open for little bits of propaganda. And, of course, you can study whole propaganda campaigns. Here are a few on which I've been gathering material. Hitler and Nazi Germany had a campaign of propaganda that ran over many years. Then there's a wealth of propaganda to study on the subject of Russia and communism. There's propaganda to study in our own American elections, national as well as local, and in many of the major issues on which elections often hinge.
Well, if I don't learn about propaganda, it won't be because there's no way to study it.
That's right, Chuck. Remember the techniques of propaganda and use the procedure we out is a powerful force. So powerful that your study of propaganda is important not only to you, but to me. The election was a victory for good government. It might also be called a victory for propaganda, but that would have been equally true if our opponent had won.
But how can you study it?
Well, you can begin by investigating the techniques of propaganda. Here, I've listed some of the main ones. Glittering generalities?
What is a glittering generality?
That headline you were quoting, a victory for good government. Good government is a phrase we use many times during the campaign. We said the mayor stood for good government and promised good government.
But it's true, isn't it?
What's true? What does good government mean? Is the mayor's idea of good government the same as yours?
I see. It's a glittering generality.
One of the best.
There's another.
Yes. And why do you suppose our opponents chose that phrase?
I guess because everybody likes a real American.
Right. And they wanted to transfer that liking for a real American to Mr. Butler. A day or so after that poster came out, I said in one of my campaign speeches, our opponent advertises himself as a real American. I say he is unreal, unrealistic. He is a visionary, a theorist, a dreamer. He is so thirsty for public office that like a weary traveler in the desert, he sees a mirage, and he is trying to sell it to you as real. There. Now, what would you call that?
That's name-calling, visionary, theorist, dreamer.
That's right. And those are very polite names. For my collection of propaganda materials, I've made a special record of part of one of Mr. Butler's radio speeches.
Mayor Cooper asks that he be judged by his performance in office. Very well. Let's ask him who was mayor when the municipal waterworks fell into such a state of disrepair that the whole town was without water for 2 days. Let's ask him. But no, let's not. It might embarrass him.
That's what we call card stacking. Cooper was mayor when the pumping station broke down, but it was the men in office before him who allowed it to get into such a rundown condition, and it finally gave way before he could get anything done.
And card stacking is choosing some facts and leaving out others and arranging them to suit your purpose.
Now, did you see our little campaign movie?
Yes, a couple of times.
Well, let's look at it again.
Land sakes. A body hardly has time enough. The house to clean, and the washing to do, and the men folks to feed. They like their chocolate cakes, too. But I do want to take time to tell you that I've known Dick Cooper ever since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He comes of a good, respectable family, just as honest as the day is long. He knows our town. He's one of us. That's why I'm going to vote for Mayor Cooper. And all my friends are going to vote for him, too.
Recognize the technique?
That must be what you call plain folks.
That's right. You'll find many versions of the appeal based on the common man, the man on the street, log cabin to president. Now let's look at the rest of the movie.
Yes, Mrs. Hamline is voting for Mayor Cooper. Her friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. Your friends are voting for Mayor Cooper. The people know what they want, and what they want is Mayor Cooper. Don't you be left behind. Get on board the Victory Special. Vote for Mayor Cooper and ride with him to victory.
That ending's easy to spot. It's the bandwagon.
Yes, the propaganda we've been talking about is easy to detect. But a great deal of propaganda is much more hidden, much harder to detect.
That's what's bothering me. Even in a small local election, there's so much propaganda. That poster, a real American, it uses a transferred device. Does that mean it isn't true?
Not necessarily. Evaluating propaganda isn't that simple. Recognizing the technique is one step. Another step is to know the purpose. What is the purpose here?
That's easy. To get people to vote for Butler.
Yes, to persuade people that Butler is the better man, to move them to vote for him. In short, to sell Mr. Butler to the voters. You'll find that the purpose of most propaganda is to persuade people to believe something, to do something, or to buy something.
All right. But it still doesn't answer my question.
No. Your next step, and it's a big one, is to get the facts.
Well, is he a real American?
Howard Butler was born in this country. He obeys its laws. He's a good citizen. Yes, he is a real American. The same can be said for Richard Cooper. So ask yourself whether the facts support the purpose. Do they support the transfer of feeling from real American to Mr. Butler over Mr. Cooper?
No, I guess not.
Well, that's your fourth step. Weigh the facts against the purpose and the technique.
I think I understand. To know whether propaganda is good or not, whether it's true or not, I should know the purpose, recognize the technique, get the facts, and judge the purpose and technique by the facts.
But when you want the facts about live political battle, don't come to a campaign manager.
I might do it at that. But I will also go and see your opposition.
Well, that's all right. Whenever you're tracking down propaganda, get as many different points of view as you can.
You know something?
What?
I think that it might be interesting to make a really serious study of propaganda.
I find it interesting, and there's plenty to study. Here I have just a few of the many books on the subject. You can read them. You can keep your eyes and ears open for little bits of propaganda. And, of course, you can study whole propaganda campaigns. Here are a few on which I've been gathering material. Hitler and Nazi Germany had a campaign of propaganda that ran over many years. Then there's a wealth of propaganda to study on the subject of Russia and communism. There's propaganda to study in our own American elections, national as well as local, and in many of the major issues on which elections often hinge.
Well, if I don't learn about propaganda, it won't be because there's no way to study it.
That's right, Chuck. Remember the techniques of propaganda and use the procedure we out is a powerful force. So powerful that your study of propaganda is important not only to you, but to me. and to the world.
Yeah, sorry, for some reason, I guess it started in the middle. But that video is called Propaganda. They showed this to high school kids in 1948. Would they allow this today? So if you want to watch that again, by all means, you can. Real Black Gentleman, is propaganda being used to divide Black people, or is it being used to unite us?
Well, it's a bit of both. I mean, naturally, it's used to kind of like separate and sift out. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, once you're able to separate and sift out, you can kind of see the different types of groups. You know, there are people who respond, you know, favorably to propaganda, and then there are people who respond disfavorably. Once you can kind of understand those camps, then you can kind of use different, you know, propaganda angles to sift out and maybe merge other groups that are separate. And you know what I'm saying? So it's mostly meant to separate, but if you look at it from a different lens, it can be used to bring peoples together. If you know what I'm saying? You can kind of you can chase out the people who are disfavorable to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's definitely used to divide Black people. It's definitely used to cut against the grain of Black people and to try to, like, especially with mass demographics and mass understandings of people's, you know, behavior. People with AI, I mean, I don't know. I understand why Black people don't really talk about what I'm saying right now. Like, they can really, like, cut at Black people's demographics in such a way that we are just, you know, granularized into just like various pockets of people that in that it shifts depending on what domain you're talking about. These people exist in, whether it be work or play, or, you know what I'm saying? That's how I feel. I think Black people, you know, religion is full of propaganda. You know, it's, you know, just logic. I mean, it's you know, if you know how logic works and know how behavior works, you can kind of, you know, thread the line between logic and like instinct and stuff. You can kind of like make something sound good, but you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? It sounds good, but once you really logically think things through, you know, like with good governance, you know what I'm saying? Good government. What is good government? I mean, it's good. It's good. You know what I'm saying? Like this, people are talking about that in the 2020s. Good government. They talk about, matter of fact, they talk about that in Africa. It's not good governance. You know, referring to the coup. You know, coup, not good governance. I mean, you follow me here, and that's how. I mean, you know, propaganda is, you know, if you can, you know, the nature of, you know, people and their various understandings. Younger people understand things better than older people may understand some things better than younger people, but still older people can be susceptible to propaganda just as easily, you know, just as younger people. That's what I got to say. I'm gonna pass the mic.
Appreciate that, Real Black Gentleman. Is propaganda being used to divide Black people, or is it being used to unite us? In the chat, Azulism is out there. He says it's always used to divide. Kevin Conrad, what say you?
I agree with Azulism. I really agree with that. From the day we were brought to this country or other colonies, it's always been used against us. You know, from, hey, look, it's these big Black brainless brutes. All they're good for, you know, is planting our field, you know, building our houses, and that's about it. And all their women are good for is to raise our baby, you know, like the mammies and stuff. They think all Black women, like for me, I started within these last 12 months, I've just been looking at a lot of historical like comic books, and you see it from back then. You know, there was a guy, I forgot the name, I think the one that drew Felix the Cat, where some Black children had to say, listen, you know, the way you're portraying our people in this, you know, your comic books, that's not how we really act, and that's not how we speak, and that's not how we look. And he got very offended by it, that these Black folks, especially these young Black children of high school age, were writing and telling him what he's doing is wrong. The character, if you look at it, was called 8-Ball, right? It was like this typical, if you look at Mickey Mouse is the dead ringer for 8-Ball. I think that's what they put in. Let's look at the drawing. But the fact that he got so angry, like that character only lasted a few issues afterwards. But as I say, if you look at it, the propaganda has never stopped. If the propaganda had stopped and they were saying that, you know, we're going to uplift black folks, that's the last thing. You don't educate the people you're trying to dominate. That's a quote I heard someone says. You don't do that. You keep them enslaved mentally. You know, I can keep going on. There's so much examples, but I'd like to pass the mic here.
Appreciate that, Kevin Carre. Looks like I put up the wrong prompt. Is propaganda being used to divide black people, or is it being used to unite us? Let me hear from Juan on this one. Juan, what's it?
Yes, so I think that this video is a brilliant video, absolutely brilliant video, and it goes through the different processes of how to be effective at propaganda. And I think that some of the people, black people, who have been very good with the use of propaganda is, and I'm gonna use examples, Candace Owens. Candace Owens, the person we talked about last week, they use a definition or a term in terms of propaganda called card stacking, I think, where you just put certain kinds of information out there, but you leave other kinds of information out there. Like when she said that slavery was something that is common to all human beings, but she didn't say that chattel slavery is unique to the Americas. Yeah, I mean, that's card stacking. That's card stacking. Just card stacking at its base level. You know, when she says that black people need to get off the democratic plantation, so that she knows that plantation is a triggering word. Black people don't want to be on a plantation mentally. They go back to the whole idea of slavery. They want to get off of the plantation. So to get off the plantation, you must come closer to us. You must come closer to us. So she used propagandizing words strategically, because she knows that word plantation is a very triggering word to so-called her black audience. You know what I mean? So she would use like getting off the plantation, being a runaway slave, trying to get freedom. Where's freedom? Freedom is in the Republican Party. You see how that works? You know, it's just it's interesting how she used propaganda and backs it up with false information, card stacking, to bring any person who was watching her information to the conclusion: the only way I could be a free black person and be offered a plantation is to come to join the Republican Party. You know what I mean? We have the answer. It's baseline propaganda. Another person who was very interesting is Tariq Nasheed. He uses propaganda effectively too, but he uses Nazi propaganda. And when I say Nazi propaganda, he used the whole idea of us against them. Okay? Hitler used the idea of it's us who are the general sincere German people. We love the German line. We are people from the German line, and these are Jews over here. They are interlopers. They're outsiders. They're rats. They're giving them a name. It was the same way he used that analysis. He said, well, we are indigenous to America. We've been in America forever. But these immigrants who come into this country, they are tethers. They're trying to tether themselves to our country. They're not real Americans, even though constitutionally that's been decided a long time ago. Of course, they are American citizens. But he uses this whole us against them paradigm to enrich himself at the end of the day. And he comes to this janky hidden history museum with a bunch of immigrants in it. Needless to say, that's another matter. But he uses propaganda very effectively, you know what I mean, to enrich himself. So propaganda is useful, absolutely, to divide our people. For what reason and purpose? For some people, it's along ideological lines, you know what I mean, because that lady is appealing to her paymasters. You know what I mean? Candace Owens is trying to get as much people recruited into the Republican Party as possible because she gets paid for that. Tariq Nasheed, his own is of personal self-interest, but he uses that effectively for his own specific reason. But propaganda is an extremely useful tool, and it has been used in particularly in the Western world to divide our people. Now on the internet is this whole idea of Pan-Africanism against us. Who this us is they don't. It's undefined. But Pan-Africanism are the bad guys, and us is the unnamed black masses who don't agree with the collectivity of black people. They never really define what Pan-Africanism is. They come up with a misinformation campaign for who they really are, but it's like it's us against them. It's just interesting, the paradigm. But propaganda, no doubt about it, is still being used in 2023, but it's used for different kinds of reasons with different kinds of people. But I'll just stop there and just leave it there.
Appreciate that, Boy. It could be said also that Tariq is a Republican shield too, actually. So I get your meaning there. Now with some more passport. No, I'm just kidding. Oni, what say you? Is propaganda being used to divide black people, or is it being used to unite us?
I think you should get your passport now, Jack. No. Actually, what you said about the Tariq Sheet in the Republican Party, that's the wild thing. When KWAZ first came out, this sister, I guess her name is Jan Aliwa, something like that. But Jam was like, yeah, you could do the campaign, you could do the you could follow the money. And if that was a Republican shit. Like the Republicans did in fact pay Yvette, and them surrounding this immigration issue, surrounding this KWAZ stuff. Okay? Obviously, Tariq Nasheed said, look, they offered me a big bag to go against. He says this. I'm saying all this to say that, yeah, and that's why I was like, we go back to the first prompt. I don't know if it's the first prompt or the second one, but with Bakari, politics is serious business to these white boys. Like, they are doing studies on this stuff. Like, this is from 1948. High school kids being shown, 67? No, matter of fact, 80 years ago, right? 80 years ago, the high school kids. So, like, when Joe Biden was in high school, he was learning, oh, yeah, we got to detect propaganda. Propaganda is useful. You understand? All of the politicians now, matter of fact, most of them, when they was youngins, they was watching this shit, talking about how to use propaganda to influence the people. Right? Now we looking at it like, what is this? Right? But in 1948, they was teaching their kids that's how important it was. Why is that important? And again, remember, 1948 means black folk weren't learning it. You know what I'm saying? You wasn't in the same school. This is what they was teaching secrets back in the day. They didn't want to integrate the school because they was teaching secrets, right? Now they just teach secrets and secret. But now they just know you ain't paying attention to school. But what I'm saying is that yeah, yeah, when you say that they were shills, yeah, they were shills. Like we know this. I'm not gonna say about the brother right now is a shill. I mean, obviously he just seems like he bought into the propaganda, real talk. But yeah, people like the way how America is operating is that a lot of black folk are agents, paid and unpaid. You know what I mean? But there was blatant paid agents, and so yeah, it's used to divide us. It's also used to unite us under division. The whole, oh man, we don't like those other thing, and we're not going to vote for the Democrats. We're not going to vote for thing. And I mean, look, Biden's not a great person, not a good president at all, right? But the whole, oh, blah, 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 and, blah, blah. A lot of it was financed by the Republicans because, again, power. I mean, because, again, yeah, power, when you're out of the presidency, when you're out of the political, when you're out of the Congress, when you're out of those positions, you don't have a say. We are so used to not having a say, we don't care. They care because when they have a say, they get to eat better. You understand? And that's all I was saying.
Well said. Well said. In the chat, Brother Bakari is out there. He says, peace and black power to KWAZ family. Make sure you guys check out all the shows on KWAZ Radio. I didn't do the midway promo, but check out Oni, of course. Check out the Harsh Ali podcast that's supposed to be returning in the fall. Check out Brother Bakari. I missed it last night, but he had his Blaze One up show last night, so check that out. Reach out to Tanzan and try to get her doing shows again. I think she is coming back, but it's taking a little longer than I thought. Reach out to the matron as well. Check out Cassidra Cheek. So check out all the shows on KWAZ Radio. Afro Native World, and I did see this too on Twitter. He says, Hotep fan, I posted on Twitter today how the disinformation / propaganda is about to get worse. They're gonna ramp that up for sure, especially around election time. You notice election time, and when there's rumors of war, that's when the propaganda is amped up a whole bunch. Does anyone else want to add a word here?
Yeah, can I add something to that? When you say it's going to get worse now with technology, there's something called deep fake where they can, let's say I can get your voice right now, record it, and I can make you say anything I want to say. If I get a video of you, I can do the same thing too. Your movement, and the average Joe will never know, right? There's a video, right, of Ron DeSantis, and there's it's going around TikTok where he goes, yeah, I'm going to do this, blah 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 blah, and there's some lady say, you will never get our vote. No one likes you, and then Ron says, well, if y'all like me, give me a clap, and only one person clapped. I fell for it the first time, like, what's going on? Then someone broke it down, like, that's an AI generated video. So yeah, we gotta start looking out for all this stuff to learn that technology. Either we use it in our favor or it's gonna be used against us.
Thank you for that, Kevin Curry. Yeah, I just heard a song where Johnny Cash was singing Biggie or something like that. So yeah, they're doing some wild stuff. Brother Bakari in the chat says, why didn't y'all come blaze with me last night? Trigger Happy 262 was there. We were listening to music. It was fun. Yeah, I missed it. I'll catch the playback tomorrow. But you guys make sure subscribe to Brother Bakari's channel because he's active. Click the bell to be notified when he's on. And check him out. Does anyone else want to add any last words here? All right.
Yeah, Brother Bakari, come on the final for a minute. I want to speak to you for a minute. Come on.
All right. In the meantime, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 5.